Walk through the doors of Hallis Hall right now, and I guarantee you can feel the tension in the air. It's thick. The Chicago Bears are staring straight down the barrel of their preseason finale against the Tennessee Titans, and honestly, they're walking into it with some absolutely massive, potentially season-derailing holes on this roster. We were talking about a totally crumbling offensive line trying to protect a generational quarterback investment, a severely depleted defensive edge with no real alpha dog in sight, and this wild, high-stakes backup quarterback trauma playing out right in front of us. The stakes for this franchise, unbelievably high, the pressure, off the charts, and the clock is literally ticking down to zero.
We are talking about less than 24 agonizing hours. That's it. That is the exact unforgiving window between the final whistle in Nashville and the 5 p.m. Sunday roster cutdown deadline where they have to finalize this 53-man squad. Back in the day, teams had a bit of breathing room to slowly trim things down and evaluate. Not anymore. This year's schedule is just ruthless. The front office has to know precisely who stays, who goes, and whose recent cuts they're going to aggressively target on the waiver wire, all before the sweat even dries on the players' jerseys. There is absolutely zero margin for error here. This isn't just about trimming the bottom of the roster. This is about diagnosing massive structural failures before week one even kicks off.
And those critical structural failures lead us right into Ben Johnson's meeting rooms. He's got Monday off-day meetings creeping up incredibly fast, and the absolute biggest, most terrifying logistical nightmare staring this front office in the face is blindside protection. Look, protecting the quarterback's blind side is universally known as the second most crucial job in football, right behind actually playing quarterback. But for the Bears, coming off that rough Bengals game, the left tackle spot has completely eroded into a full-blown crisis. Think about it. You simply cannot develop a franchise quarterback if he is spending every Sunday running for his life. They need answers immediately, and the film they've watched so far, it's offering absolutely nothing but more nightmares.
Let's look at the cold, hard numbers here, because this instantly shows you why the coaching staff is so deeply disheartened. Braxton Jones, the guy they were heavily counting on to lock down that edge, posted a devastatingly low 29.6 pass blocking grade from Pro Football Focus. That was across just 15 snaps against Cincinnati's backups. A 29.6 out of 100 isn't just a bad day at the office. It is an outright glaring liability. Then you've got Kieran Amegaji, who actually put up a decent 70.4 run blocking grade, but he really struggled in pass pro with a 57.0, giving up 3 pressures. And then there's Jedrick Wills Jr. with the exact opposite issue, a great 80.0 pass block grade, but a remarkably poor 47.5 in the run game. It's like a giant puzzle, but literally none of the pieces fit together to make one reliable left tackle.
But let's go back to Braxton Jones for a second, because it wasn't just that abstract 29.6 grade triggering all the alarm bells in the facility. It was what it actually looked like on the grass. We are talking about a brutal holding penalty inside the 10-yard line that completely wiped out a crucial first down run from Roschon Johnson. When you're down in the red zone, you absolutely cannot have a veteran committing drive-killing penalties. Plus, the tape showed Jones getting consistently bull-rushed into oblivion by second- and third-string edge rushers. Just think about that. If he's getting completely physically overpowered by backup players in an August exhibition game, what on earth is going to happen when he lines up against elite, starting NFL edge rushers in a matter of weeks? It is a total recipe for disaster.
The sheer frustration inside that front office right now stems from a very careful, meticulously calculated plan that has totally blown up in their faces. See, the Bears originally invested heavily in Jones holding down that left tackle spot, just to buy some time until Ozzie Trapillo could return from his issues and take over the reins. They didn't need Braxton Jones to be an all-pro this August. They just needed him to be a sturdy, reliable bridge. But because of this sudden and incredibly steep regression, that bridge is collapsing before they've even reached the other side. Time has essentially run out on this little experiment, and the coaches know they can't just blindly trust that Jones will magically figure it out when the regular season lights come on.
And the reason the panic meter is dialed all the way up to 10 is because their designated savior, Ozzie Trapillo, is nowhere near ready to step onto an NFL gridiron. Right now, he hasn't even begun full scrimmage practices yet. His day-to-day routine is basically just light stretching, a little bit of running, and some highly controlled, limited individual drills. If the coaching and medical staff decide he needs more intensive work to recover, which, let's be real, is highly likely at this stage, he's heading straight to injured reserve. That forces a mandatory minimum of 4 weeks on the sideline. That means Chicago has to survive the first brutal month of the season with a massive, exploitable vulnerability on their offensive line.
When you're this desperate, you start resorting to some really unusual tactics. Theo Benedett actually had the closest thing to an acceptable performance, posting a 66.6 run block grade and a 50.4 pass block grade against the subs. But guys, acceptable for a backup is not how you keep your starting quarterback healthy. This dire situation left offensive line coach Dan Rochar so desperate that he had to call in Jones's former mentor, Teron Armstead, for a visit to Hallis Hall. Why? Because the outside free agency market is completely dry this late in the calendar. Nobody sitting on their couch right now is going to walk into a professional facility in late August and suddenly start at left tackle in week 1. They have to fix the guys already in the building, and right now the building is practically on fire.
Section 2. A depleted defensive edge. All right, let's flip over to the other side of the trenches, because if you thought the offense was sweating, wait until you see the terrifying macro-level panic happening on defense. Because while the front office is terrified for their quarterback's safety, the defensive coordinator is losing sleep over how they're going to get to the opposing quarterback. As of right now, the Bears' edge rushing depth chart is a complete ghost town. They're essentially grasping at straws to find anyone who can rush the passer alongside Austin Booker and Deo Odingo. When you glance around the rest of the division and see teams like the Packers waiting to get Micah Parsons back to terrorize offenses, the contrast is honestly stark and alarming. The Bears just don't have that true game-wrecking alpha right now, and it's forcing them to hold out desperate hope for their 2025 second-round pick Shamar Turner to somehow swoop in and save the day. But this timeline right here brilliantly illustrates exactly why the Bears absolutely cannot afford to rely on Turner to fix this immediate pass rush crisis. Look at this sequence. Chicago drafted him in 2025, knowing full well he already had a rod in his shin. Then, disaster strikes in Week 8 of his rookie year when he tears his ACL against the Ravens. Fast forward to August 2026, and he is completely missing from training camp. His projected return? Sometime in October. You simply cannot expect a guy coming off a massive knee injury who hasn't practiced in nearly a year to just step onto the field midseason and instantly become a savior against regular season starting tackles who are already in midseason form. And to complicate the tension even further, let's talk about the sheer positional reality for Turner. We're talking about a 6'3", 293-pounder who is being asked to transition from defensive tackle, where he played entirely inside as a rookie, out to the edge defensive end. That is an entirely different world. He has to learn completely new gap responsibilities, different hand-fighting techniques, and totally new run-fit assignments. And he's expected to do all of this without having taken a single organized spring practice or camp rep at this new position. Plus, he likely has to shed weight to get his edge rushing speed up, all while rehabbing a surgically repaired ACL. It's a monumental ask, and it just highlights exactly how dangerously thin the Bears really are on the defensive line. Section 3. The Backup's Audition. So, while the front office scrambles to fix these monumental holes in the trenches, there is a fascinating, intense, micro-level drama unfolding right under center for the backup quarterback spot.
Let's rewind just a bit for some context here. After Tyson Bagent suffered a hamstring injury in the preseason opener against the Browns, head coach Ben Johnson was forced into this incredibly messy, disjointed quarterback carousel. In the ensuing game against the Bengals, we saw Caleb Williams play exactly one drive before taking his seat. Then veteran Case Keenum stepped in for relief, and finally, Miller Moss had to finish out what became a really ugly 27-9 blowout loss. The whole offense lacked any real identity or rhythm. And honestly, this messy carousel perfectly highlighted exactly why nailing down a confident, reliable backup quarterback is so utterly crucial in a long, grueling NFL season.
But now, the narrative is shifting again. Tyson Bagent says he's feeling great, the hamstring is fully recovered, and he is treating this upcoming preseason finale against the Titans not as some meaningless exhibition, but as a high-stakes, deeply personal audition. Bagent isn't just out there playing out the string to collect a check. He's stepping onto the turf in Nashville, fully aware that all 32 general managers in the league have access to this tape. For him, this is about putting his talent on absolute display and proving he belongs in this league, not just as a backup holding a clipboard, but as a potential starter who can genuinely command an offense. And the core of that intense mindset is captured perfectly in this quote. He recently stated, "I just think about it like I am the starter. Realistically speaking, I am one play away." I mean, that is just raw, unfiltered individual ambition right there. He is mentally preparing himself to take over an NFL franchise at a second's notice. And that kind of mental fortitude is exactly what front offices look for when evaluating the most important position in sports. He isn't looking at that crumbling offensive line as an excuse to fail. He's looking at it as the ultimate opportunity to show how fast he can process the field and get the ball out under intense pressure.
To actually achieve those broader goals, though, Bagent knows he has some serious cleanup duty to do on his own film. In his only 2026 preseason actions so far against Cleveland, he went 13 for 22 with 169 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Now, throwing for 169 yards in limited action definitely shows a real, tangible command of the offense and an ability to move the chains. But that interception, that's a glaring blemish he desperately wants to erase from the minds of pro scouts. Saturday against the Titans is quite literally his final opportunity to put a clean, dominant, mistake-free performance on tape before the regular season locks him onto the bench.
And let's be completely honest about the dynamic in Chicago right now. Because Caleb Williams is cemented as the franchise cornerstone, the undisputed, heavily invested future of the Chicago Bears, Tyson Bagent knows his absolute ceiling in this specific building is as a backup. Therefore, he is actively utilizing this ticking clock and this preseason finale to entice trade interest. He is playing for a starting opportunity that he firmly believes he deserves. In a league where competent quarterback play is at an absolute premium and devastating injuries happen literally every single week, Bagent is aiming to be the answer to another team's mid-season crisis.
Section 4. The Final Countdown. All these incredibly volatile storylines, the blindside collapse, a vacant defensive edge, and a hungry opportunist making his final pitch, they are all colliding at the exact same moment.
Which brings us to the ultimate, inescapable reality. As the final whistle blows in Tennessee, this massive, unanswered question is going to dictate the entire trajectory of the Chicago Bears' 2026 season. Can they fix the trenches in time? If they can't block for Caleb Williams, his development is stunted. His confidence could wane, and the entire offensive scheme collapses. On the flip side, if they can't pressure opposing quarterbacks, their secondary will be picked apart, and the defense will break. This single question will define their year. It all comes down to what happens with the big guys up front over these next few defining weeks.
Coach Johnson and the front office are staring at a completely terrifying roster puzzle. In the 24 hours following the Titans game, they must quickly decide their core philosophy. Will they aggressively scour the waiver wire, hoping beyond hope that other teams' cast-offs can somehow be plugged in to save their offensive line? Or will they just blindly trust the struggling, heavily penalized unit they've invested so much time and draft capital into? It is a massive, career-defining gamble either way. Do you bring in a stranger who doesn't even know the playbook, or do you trust a player who is currently getting bull-rushed by backups? Honestly, it is a stark, almost cinematic reminder of just how fragile an NFL roster truly is. General managers spend from January to August meticulously drafting, scouting, and building what they believe is a foolproof machine. Yet, a span of less than 24 hours, a few bad preseason series, and a couple of lingering injuries can completely unravel months of careful, calculated planning. The Bears thought they had a bridge at left tackle. They thought their defensive line would hold up. Now they are in absolute survival mode, and a regular season hasn't even officially begun yet.
Now, you might be wondering how this all plays out. Well, if you want to keep diving deep into the league's most intense, high-stakes stories just like this one, you absolutely need to hit that subscribe button for NFL Nexus. We break down the real chess moves happening behind the scenes of your favorite franchises. Like this explainer if you found it insightful, and drop down in the comments right now. I really want to know your opinion. Should the Bears cross their fingers and trust Braxton Jones, or do they need to make a desperation trade for a left tackle immediately? Let me know what you think.
And lastly, support the channel by becoming a member today so you never miss out on the thrilling consequences, the fierce rivalries, and the cinematic history happening right now across the gridiron. The NFL season is incredibly unforgiving, and the decisions the Bears make in these next 24 hours will echo for months. Will this ticking clock result in a masterpiece of roster management, or is it the beginning of a disastrous season-long collapse? We'll be right here to break down the whole shebang. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.